Good evening, everybody. Welcome along to the Rangers Rabble podcast, the Rabble Extra tonight, where we will be having a chat about tomorrow's game, players coming back for injury, and obviously the big talking point that's still raging on, the next manager, the Rangers Football Club, as well. And joining me tonight to go over all of that, I have an excellent panel. Kerr, how are we?
I'm not bad, Connor. Not bad. Yourself?
Not bad. Aye, kind of looking forward to us getting back out in the football pitch again with all the drama that's taken place off it over the last couple of days, I think. Stuart, how are we doing?
Yes, I'm all good, Connor. Yes, I look forward to a wee chat about all things Rangers. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, we'll kick off with some positive news because we've not had a lot of that recently. So I just thought that'd be a good place to start. Tomorrow night, Kerr, big game, obviously, for Stephen Davis and his makeshift coaching staff. Obviously, we're all hoping for a win. And on the positive side of things, we've got Raskin and Kemar Roof both seemingly going to be back in the squad for that one. How much of a role, if any, do you think the two of them will play tomorrow?
I think it depends. Stephen did say in the press conference they're going to have another training session, isn't he? Or whatever tomorrow morning or in down, whatever, and then we'll see how they come, see how they feel. Listen, I think they'll be on the bench. One might start, but I'm not sure what one, but I think they'll be on the bench. And I think they may come on if the game's not going our way, but I wouldn't rush them. If it's an important game on Sundays, you don't want to rush them too much in case they're injured or out longer, but I mean, they were kind of penciled in for coming back for one game, so I don't need too much into these things, even though some players, because the manager has a way, they may say they're fitter before they should be, but listen, it's all conspiracy at that moment, but it's just good to have them back in the squad again.
Absolutely, Stuart, and that's the thing, isn't it? Especially, I think, with Kemar Roof more so than Raskin, because we know the history of injuries that Kemar's got. Obviously, Nico himself has picked up one or two knocks, but Kemar in particularly, we do have to take our time. But will it be a case? Because I think most of us would expect that Dessers will probably start up front tomorrow just because of the fitness issues. But will Stephen Davis look to Kemar Roof if it's not working with Dessers up front tomorrow, regardless of the fact he's got the injury, or will he have to look at an alternative option to try and preserve Roof's fitness?
I don't think he'll have much option but to use him, to be perfectly honest. I mean, you looked at the bench on Saturday and it gave you the fear, and that's not a criticism of young Lovelace or anything like that, but he is still just a young boy. So I think you're right, it probably will be Dessers. I think if Roof was 90-95% fit, then he might actually risk starting him because the way Dessers' confidence is clearly at the moment. If it's a case that he's maybe only 70-75, then yeah, look, he's at least an option for us off the bench. In an ideal world, you wouldn't be flinging them straight back in, but we might need to. I mean, Jack's not travelled, so again, does that mean that the manager might be forced to bring in Raskin in a bit quicker than what we'd like? You don't know. He might need to do that, but we've not got an abundance of options at the moment. Injuries are a part of this squad, unfortunately at this time. So I think his options of maybe taking his time with players and easing them back in and thinking, well, maybe I'll preserve them for Sunday. He might not have that luxury just because of our injury list and the way that the squad is at the moment. It's a bit thin.
It certainly is a thin squad, Kerr, and obviously as Stuart touched on there, where we get a couple of players back in one hand, we're losing Ryan Jack. That to me could be problematic for the midfield, because I don't think he'll start Raskin because he's just came back for injury. Equally though, I'm not sure who fills that void, that role that will be left by Ryan Jack tomorrow. Or does maybe Stephen Davis go a different way than the midfield three we've been used to seeing under Michael Beale? What's your sort of thoughts on that midfield, knowing the kind of lack of options that we've got available to us?
think it just depends who's fit enough to play. But listen, they could change it altogether and go a 3-4-3. Do you know that way, and push 2 fullbacks up and just play Lundstrom and Cifuentes in the middle if he's lacking numbers. But you don't know what he's going to do. I don't think there'll be a lot of change with Stephen. He's in it as an intern. He's in it just to keep the ship sailing, as they say, until a more permanent manager comes in. So I don't see him doing a lot of different things, to be honest with you, because he's just in there. He knows the players more as friends than he does as like a manager, as a boss. He's got the respect obviously from them all, but he's still a teammate first and foremost, because that's the way they're looking at him. I know he's in there as an interim manager, but until he got it permanently, things wouldn't change that much. So I just think he'll go out and try and get his result right enough. I hope he does try a couple of things, but it's risky as well because it could backfire and it could actually just blow his chances right out the way. So I think he'll put out a team who he thinks is going to win, who's suitable and who's going to win the match for us. And I think that's all he can do. He's only getting the door at the last minute. He said himself he got a phone call on Sunday, so he's had a couple of days probably to prepare. It's a lot of pressure for Stephen. He'll take it in his stride, but it's still a lot of pressure for this guy because he's like me, you, and Stuart. He's a Rangers fan first and foremost, and even though he's a legend football player, doesn't always make you a good manager, as we've seen in the past. But listen, I've got faith in him and his staff there, so I think he'll show the players respect. They'll give it back, and I think he'll name a team that'll get a result tomorrow night.
Oh, listen, we'll certainly be hoping he does, that's for sure. I've got the faith in Steve Davis. Stuart, I think we all do. He's massively respected, as Kerr touched on there, by the players, the club, by the fan base. And he is, he's a winner as a player. He's been involved in very successful Rangers teams, under Walter Smith. And he's, to be fair, and this is where I wonder if you think certain qualities might come to the fore as a manager, because he was involved in a Rangers team in 2011 that was very thin on the ground in terms of the players that we had available under Walter Smith. And that Rangers team got a cup and league double over the line. So will that bit of resiliency and the fact he's met that adversity as a player head on factor in tomorrow and him being more than comfortable to step up to the challenge?
I think he's more than comfortable stepping up to the challenge. I think it's something that he looks as if he's embracing, the way he's talking. He always does. He always came across very well, Stephen Davis and stuff like that. So, I've been no surprised to see how well he's kind of handled the kind of media side of it. Kerr's right, there is pressure on him, but also, a kind of unique opportunity for him in a way that I think he'll be putting pressure on himself. I'm not entirely convinced there's a massive amount of pressure on him from us as fans, though, because I think the fans realise that the shit show that he's inherited here it's got nothing to do with him. So, if Rangers were to go out tomorrow and get beat, I don't think the fans are going to blame Stephen Davis for that. So, in one game, I think he'll put pressure on himself to try and get results. He'll want to show himself in a good light. You don't know what could happen in terms of any new manager maybe wanting to keep him on and be part of his coaching. So he'll want to be shown that. But I think he's got a kind of unique opportunity where results wise, he can maybe allow these players to go with a wee bit more freedom. He can maybe utilise his experience of playing alongside certain players and knowing what works better for them and try and maybe develop a system. Kerr's right, he's only had one or two training sessions. I don't expect to see a free-flowing Rangers football team tomorrow that we're all suddenly going to get. That's not going to happen. But he said himself there might be wee things that he can tweak to hopefully get the best out of players. So pressure, I think he'll be putting on himself because I think he'll want to show himself in a good light. I just don't think that there's a lot of pressure on him from the fans, because at the moment, as a fan base, I don't think we're expecting a lot from these players. And if things don't go well tomorrow night, I don't think anybody's really going to be pointing the finger at Stephen Davis, because none of it is his fault. So I think he's got an opportunity, and one that I think, as I said, he looks as if he's embracing it, the way he's handling himself. So, best of luck to him. Whatever happens, whether it's 2 games, 3 games, 4 games, he'll still always be a Rangers legend in to the eyes of the Rangers support.
Yeah, listen, he will be, and I think that's the important thing, because I reckon that probably the pressure tomorrow will fall more on the players than it will the manager, which is a rare situation to a degree, because usually the manager's the one that always fronts up most of the pressure. But I think given the performances that we've had for these players so far, although admittedly the last European night, they did go out get the result against Betis, and I thought for a good hour in that match after the first half hour, they did turn up and play some good stuff. But they have now in effect played a manager out of a job that we all agree had to go. How much of an onus do you put on those players stepping up for Stephen Davis as well, and showing, because it's one thing using the words, and I'll touch on obviously James Tavernier had comments today as well in saying you respect the man, but how much pressure is on them to actually step up and show that in the park and give him something that he can be happy with tomorrow night?
Listen, there's been pressure on these players all season. They've not stepped up, so they've got Stephen Davis there, and is he going to make them be able to step up? Some might, but to be honest with you, Con, I just think some's not good enough. Personally, I think some of the players I've got are not good enough, and it doesn't matter who. If Michael Beale's left and they bring a new manager, and I think new manager, whoever it will be, will have his work cut out, because I think a lot of these players will come in and think they're not good enough for me, or they're not going to take this club forward. So I think it'll be a kind of patience game until we can change some of the squad. So I think Stephen knows the ones he probably can trust playing beside him, and probably what he's been watching, and probably knows the ones he can't trust. But like I said earlier, his hands are kind of tied at the moment due to his squad numbers. But listen, I think he will still get a result tomorrow night. And I think sometimes, as we all know, when somebody else comes in to take over, you get a wee bit, the players get a wee boost, don't they? You get a wee reaction from them just to kind of try and prove a point. But it's not a point we want proved. We want to win, obviously, but we want these players to be consistent. And I have been consistently poor. But apart from that, all season we've been awful. But Stephen, tomorrow night, like Stuart said, he will put himself under pressure, but he knows what he has to do. And I think, like I said earlier, I think he'll do it well, and they'll move on to the next game. But listen, some of these players, like I said earlier, just aren't good enough. No, if it's Stephen Davis as manager, whoever else we get next.
Connor, can I just? I mean,
yeah.
Connor, would you be surprised to see players maybe appearing to show a bit more effort tomorrow than what they were doing on Saturday or whatever? I think he will command a respect in that dressing room, even from the players that didn't play alongside him, but absolutely from the ones that have relied on him as a teammate week in and week out. It would not surprise me if we see some of those players who have been bang average suddenly look as if there's a bit more energy about them, a bit more commitment about them. Kerr's right. If you knew why changing a manager gave players that bounce or whatever, then we'd all be freaking millionaires. I don't know if you could truly understand that, but that's what happens. They will show that, and ultimately these players are kind of playing for the future. My hope is that whoever we bring in is a clean slate. So players, in terms of what they've done for this club over previous years, that's absolutely great. But if you're looking at somebody like Tavernier, and I'm just picking on him, and I don't mean to just have a right go at Tav here, because he's not been the worst in my opinion. But somebody like Tavernier, a new manager's coming in, should be looking at it saying, is your form this season good enough for you to be your first choice right back? Or was he first choice right back because he's been our first choice right back for years and he does pop up with goals? It should be a clean slate when this whoever the new guy comes in is, and then I think you will see a difference in some of these players. I don't know what you think about that, but it would not surprise me tomorrow if we see players kind of 50-50s that they weren't winning, all of a sudden they were tomorrow.
Well, listen, it wouldn't surprise me if we've seen that. No, I think obviously, you know, as you mentioned, Ed, sometimes you talk about new manager bounces and all that kind of stuff that can happen off the back of this sort of stuff. And I suppose you might get that for some of them. I think as well, as Kerr said, me personally, there's definitely a number of players in that squad, I think, fighting for their lives because, and obviously we'll touch on the chat in detail a little bit later on, but whatever new manager, whoever we get that comes in, you know, come January, are they going to be looking and saying, can I get a few players out the door here that just aren't good enough, and see what they can bring in? Obviously, we won't know the answers to that until then, but I think those players will be very much aware that, you know, that their shirt's in a sugary peg right now with the performances. And I mean, Kerr, I want to touch on something. Firstly, we have a super chat for Jim Sloan. Thanks very much. The pressure is on the players. They have been absolutely pushed. Manager or no manager, no more excuses. Would you agree with Jim there, Kerr?
To a point, he's spot on. And I've seen a couple of comments saying we're slagging the players off. We should be better. We should be, but we aren't. And that's a problem with the team just now. I mean, we've won 2 trophies in out of 21. You can probably say longer than that. But we can't keep sitting here saying we need to be winning stuff. We need to be doing this. We aren't. And we can only look at the players that's in the squad at the moment. And I agree with you, Connor. Yes, some might step up to the mark tomorrow night, but then they fall away against St Mirren. You can't do it when you want to. You have to do it constantly or consistently. And the players aren't. And the players he's brought in, Dessers, Lammers, might be decent footballers in the past, but what we've seen in them are poor, very poor. And for money we've spent, I'm not good enough. And it's not just they two. And a new manager comes in and he looks at Tavernier, the captain. Tav's been great for the club. He's been a great signing for the money he cost. He's done a lot of good stuff for Rangers. But is he a player you want to go forward with? Probably not. Golson's the same. Lundstrom's the same. Ryan Jack's the same. So there's a lot of guys in the squad now we don't need, or we can't continue with, because the regressions are taking us back to where we were when we come back up to the league. So, no, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and praise players when they're not performing in the park. Sorry, I'm not, because I pay my money and I go and see them every week. So I'm not going to sit and praise them. If they play well, I will. But they've been very poor at the moment, so I'm not getting praise for me.
Yeah, I mean, Stuart, what's your sort of taking, and what Jim's saying there, when he's saying, obviously, you know, manager or no manager, there's no more excuses for these players. I mean, I would have to say he's right there, isn't he?
Well, look, Michael Beale made massive mistakes as a Rangers manager, and it's cost him his job. But these players need to have a wee look at themselves as well. Are they playing to the best of their ability? No. You know, if we'd taken our chances at the start of the Aberdeen game, we're probably talking about a completely different Saturday, and probably Michael Beale is still in a job. Now, whether or not he would have been able to maintain that, probably not. But there is a responsibility on the players to perform as well. Your captain said that in his press conference this afternoon. You know, they understand that managers don't lose their jobs really just on all in them. Yes, he made poor decisions. He may have picked or signed poor players, but actually have the performances of these players, as Kerr has been talking about, week in, week out, been good enough? Other than Butland, can we really say that we've seen enough from whether new signings, existing players, to say that their performances have been hitting a level where we've got confidence in that they're going to get results? And that was the biggest problem. You were going to Ibrox, you were watching games on the telly. You had an air of trepidation about what you were about to witness. You were never going there confident that you were going to see a Rangers performance week in or week out. That wasn't happening. The Betis game, for example, should have been a spur of the moment to say, you know what, we actually are a decent side. We've beaten a very decent Spanish side. Right, let's push on. What did we then get? A really, really poor performance against Motherwell where we're hanging on. And then, yeah, you get a wee bit of a lift against Livy, and then you're back into Aberdeen. There's the inconsistency in the players is something that a new manager is absolutely going to have to resolve, because we won't move. further forward. If we can't sort that out, they need to get a consistency and a performance from a majority of them in every game. And at the moment, you might be getting 1, 2, 3 playing to a decent standard and the rest not. And that's what's bringing us down.
Yeah, I mean, Kerr, you know, and actually what Stephen's saying there might touch nicely on what I'm going to ask you. We talk about that inconsistently. Now, I think that the one thing we've been over a number of years now is consistently inconsistent, because we seem to have had this knack where things can be going really poorly domestically, but we step up in Europe. We put in performances, we find a way of getting results. I mean, you know, you look at the 2022 Europa League campaign, we got all the way to the final there, but we all knew, as Rangers fans watching week in, week out, that we were having struggles domestically. Again, you know, coming off the back of that, we didn't obviously win the league title. We were dropping points again in silly areas. Is that partly because the previous managers have been too soft on the players when it comes to demanding consistency? I mean, what is it that turns that switch for certain players over a number of years that have been there in European competition as opposed to domestic?
I don't know, Connor. Maybe don't feel as much pressure put in Europe because they're going as underdogs, whereas in their own domestic league, they should win every game. A draw, they know, even getting a draw, they're getting criticism for it, whereas playing in Europe, if they get a good result, they're getting praised. I don't know if is it that mindset, or is it a team that was kind of built under Steven Gerrard for Europe and it's just kind of continued because we've done well in Europe since Steven Gerrard came in, but the league campaigns were always up and down. We were doing well in one part of the campaign, but the next part, after the winter break, whatever, we would always die a death. I don't know. You'd have to ask the players that, but the consistency is there's been players there for a long time at Rangers, and these same guys have been with a few different managers, and they're still making the same errors that they were making when they first came in. Like I said, Tav's done well. He's got a great record, and it will always stand with what he's done. But he's one of these guys I wouldn't continue with. Yeah, I'm not saying your manager's going to come in and they can't change your players overnight. Right, you need to wait till the windows are open. You need to get people to buy them off here. You need to try and move them on. Stuff like that. So it'll take a while. But I'm just talking forward thinking. I don't think we're forward thinking as much. Michael Beale bought a lot of players in, but the ones he wanted, and his recruitment let him down and us down. And that he lived and died by his own players, basically, because they let him down badly. And he'll probably admit that himself. He probably thought they'd done better than what he'd imagined. Maybe it was lack of formation. Maybe it was some of the players did look lost. I have to agree. But even when you're a football player in a park, there's something about you. The manager gives you instructions, but when you cross a white line, I know it's a kind of cliche, but I've been in that kind of environment myself at a lower level. The players go into a park, and if something's not working, a lot of times they can figure it out themselves. And the captain is the ones that usually bangs their heads together. But our captain doesn't, because that's not what he does. But he tries to lead by example, but that's kind of stopped as well. So I don't know, is that just a kind of mindset in the dressing room as second best is good enough, or we get a good European one and finish second, that's good enough? I don't know. I wish I did, because I like to change it very quickly, but I don't know. I just feel we need a manager who probably can come in and command. They say bash heads together. That's kind of moved out of football. You can't go into a dressing room and start throwing things and doing stuff. Football's moved away from that. I mean, you probably get a police at the door at the dressing room, but because some of the players are quite mollycoddled nowadays. But you need to go in and do something to the players, but it has to move someone. So whoever the new manager is, even January or next summer, and when he starts afresh, he has to move that abundance of these players on. Yeah, we had a rebuild in the summer, but probably not a rebuild to this rebuild, because we can't continue with some of the guys we've got, because they'll just chuck him under the same bus they've chucked the last two.
Yeah, no, listen, I totally agree. And that's something we can't afford both on and off the park to keep on doing. I mean, Stuart, on to Robert's point there, I think some of these commenters are wanting to host this because they're preempting some of what I'm about to say before I actually say it. So kudos to them. But in terms of tomorrow night, which I'm assuming is what Robert's referring to, and obviously for Saturday,
Have we lost? You're on mute, Scott. I think we've lost Connor, haven't we?
I think Connor has disappeared. Aye, so
He's
are you
disappeared. I was wondering if it was me. I'll answer Robert's question. Would I rip it up and start again? I think in it, he's not going to have the ability to do that. Let's say just after 2 training sessions. He said himself, I think there'll be small things that he'll try and tweak. I think he'll know the players well enough that he can maybe try and get them playing, hopefully in a system, maybe with some tactics that he might get the best out of them. Whether that's Tav, Barisic, whoever, I think he'll do that. Can he rip it up? No. If he's meaning more longer term, I'm not sure I'm in the camp where I think all of these players that Michael Beale bought are duds. I do think there's potential in these players, not all of them. I think I'm not quite convinced that they're all duds and the game's a bogey for all of them. I do wonder whether or not we were playing a system and playing to the strengths of them, which makes it all the more confusing because it's the manager who personally went out and bought them. But sometimes they do, not just them, but as a team, we look a bit lost during games in terms of actually what is the plan here? What are we trying to do? We need to play with more pace and energy, trying to get guys involved more. I think we have kind of reverted back into sideways passing, slowing it down, allowing teams to get behind the ball and just, and making it extremely difficult for us. So I think in the short term, we won't be able to rip it up and start again. It will just need to be, as Kerr says, let's get through these games. Whoever the new man's in is then going to have to wait and try and do something in January if possible. But that's not the easiest transfer window to try and do something in as well. So I wouldn't be expecting wholesale changes there and then. Then yeah, on to next summer and see what we can do. But I think it will be interesting to see how these players Beale has brought in, how they react to a new manager and whether or not we start to see an uplift in performance. That's when we'll know whether or not they're good enough or they're not. Because if they continue to play the same way, then I think we know that Michael Beale has probably bought some poor players for us. So, a big few months coming up for these guys in terms of to prove to a new manager, but also prove to us as fans that they belong here.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I mean, to touch on something here that our esteemed captain, James Tavernier, made a somewhat rare appearance these days at a press conference. I suspect that's partially been due to the influence of Steve Davis as well, and saying, listen, you really do need to, because I think he's been getting a bit of flack over the recent days because everything that's been going on with losing our manager. We saw the scenes outside Ibrox when he kind of brushed off a fan where Jack Butland stepped up to the mark in that situation. So he's had to come out, I think, and brazen up a bit. But he said that collectively as a team that they know that their performances haven't been there and that they all take responsibility for that. My question to you, Kerr, would be, are they actually does it look like they're all taking responsibility for it? Because I'm looking at a captain here who wasn't the first person out doing the media rounds after Michael Beale lost his job and after the game on Saturday, who has seemed to shy away, certainly this season in recent weeks, from some of that pressure. So if the team are all taking responsibility, does that not have to, from a player's standpoint, come from him first as the captain?
In the dressing room, probably, Connor, yes. In front of media, not always. A lot of captains don't like talking to media. You see it at a lot of different clubs. I know people get annoyed when it doesn't, but some don't. Being a captain's about the dressing room mentality, and you're the man for it. You're the kind of link between the players and the coach or the manager. It's nothing to do about media duties and stuff like that. It's a totally different thing. But I know what you mean, and I get what you mean, and they probably should have been out talking, but maybe just not comfortable in front of media. Maybe it's more like as a dressing room man and you get somebody else in front of media who's good with media. I mean, everybody's different, but listen, I just think Tav's times came and went at Rangers, and I like Tav, I have to say, but I think even my support are starting to wane. But he's not the only one, but he's going to be here for a while. Like Stuart said, January's a poor window, and it's going to be the summer, plus it's finances and getting players out and stuff like that. So the players are going to have to take responsibility, but we hear it all the time. We've heard it 3 or 4 times already this season, and it's only October. So I'm wondering how many more times we'll hear it before Christmas. But they're going to have to take a good look at themselves, because they're playing at a club where this could be the biggest club they play for. They might leave us and never be heard again, do you know that way? And I just feel some of the players have lost. I think Tab's lost what he had. I don't think he gets something down the flank like he used to. I think he struggles, especially when he's going forward to get back. Unless he's never been the best defender, but that was never his strongest part of his game. It was always going forward. I think the left side, Borna does as well. But Borna has actually been played okay this season, to be honest with you. Defensively, he's not been great, but attacking-wise, he's been better. But I just feel we have to get away from relying on a fullback so much, and that's what I mean about formation and style under Michael Beale. There wasn't nothing there. It was like, get your fullbacks involved, give them the ball, let them whip it in, or give it to somebody who can create. And that's why you felt like guys like Campbell were getting frustrated, because last season Todd came in and done well because he had a set position. This season he didn't. At one of the games against Celtic, he was told to cover when Tavernier went forward. He was actually covering Tav, and that's not Todd Campbell's game. And you've seen Raskin getting frustrated. You've seen other players getting frustrated. So maybe at a point when somebody else takes over, these players will get a new lease of life. But I still feel some have passed their time and some aren't good enough. I won't say all his signings, and I still think Danilo has got a chance. I think he's a really good goal scorer. He just has to be played more often. The boy Sterling, we don't know. He's not had enough game time, so we can't judge him. He's been on the bench more than he's been anywhere else. Butland's probably been the best signing we've made. That's just because he's constantly involved. And Cifuentes, or Cifu, I call him, there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there's something that I like. But there's also something that frustrates me. And I don't know what it is. I just feel he's struggling, but I don't know if he's been played where he's meant to be playing. If I mean, I heard there's a box-to-box player, but they've been shoving him out to the right side, and he seems frustrated there. You've seen it in games, and he's trying to whip the ball in and stuff like that. And I just don't know maybe if Stephen Davis, however, says to these players, maybe he finds our strongest position in the park. Maybe we change it, like I said earlier, maybe we'll go a 3-4-3. I don't know, but something has to be done. Somebody else can't come in and play exactly the same way we've been playing. Because if you watch us play, there's no really any rhyme or reason what we're doing. And our teams can figure us out very quickly. Very, very quickly. And at the back, they're just a minefield. We concede goals very, very sloppy. So it's interesting to see what's going to happen. It's not great, but it's interesting. So I'm looking forward to see who we get in. As we know, whoever it is, me, you, and Stuart will probably disagree with the new appointment, because 2 years will probably like him, now Per Simone. That's just Rangers.
Yeah, listen, it's the nature of the beast. You know, we're never all going to be happy with it, but we certainly all would want them to be successful in that respect. I mean, sure, just on the game tomorrow, sort of finally, we're playing a team in Aris who, you know, the manager said today it's been a bit of a scramble, obviously, trying to watch as many tapes as he could and understand them. They've changed their system, I think, 3 times in the last 4 games, he said. I had a look earlier. They've actually not won a game themselves since the 3rd of September. They're 4 winless. And given, as the captain said as well today, we did get off to a good start in the Europa League against Betis. We are, I think, ordinarily, the circumstances, you would say it's a winnable game. So do the players have that ability to kind of try and block out the noise on the park, park the domestic stuff for a second and focus on, we have had actually a positive start in the Europa League campaign, and continuing that on and try and build some momentum off the back of
that? Yeah, I think they can. I think they kind of have to. You know, I think it was kind of mentioned in the press conference a couple of times, isn't it? The great thing about being a football player is when something goes wrong, there's generally a game just round the corner where you can actually try and put it right. Now, I'm not there's probably no real easy games in Europe anymore, particularly in away game, particularly in the group stages of a European competition. But this is the lowest ranked team in our group. As you say, they're hardly setting the world alight in terms of their own form. So, it's an opportunity for these players to start getting a bit of confidence. They might not have a new manager in place, but all these games are going to be available to the new manager, whoever it is. Or if we're already sounding out new managers, then they're probably going to be watching this game in the off chance that they might be the new manager. So they are there now to be shown they need to step up. They're playing for their futures as well, and we should be beating a Cypriot team. Let's be honest. We should be doing it. It's a good opportunity, and if we win tomorrow night and we're 6 points out of 6, then actually for a new manager, it's not a bad place to be in terms of being 2 out of 2 in your Europa League group, a semi-final of a League Cup. Okay, the league is an issue at the moment, but it's still early in the season. I don't believe that isn't retrievable given the amount of games that's go. So, if you can get a positive result tomorrow, one, it gives the confidence, hopefully the players. It's a great start for Stephen Davis to take in then to what will be a tricky game at the weekend. Again, a team who will be absolutely up for it, and a place that we tend to struggle a bit, but also bigger picture. It makes actually the job more attractive in terms of that you've had a really positive start in the group, and it puts you in a really strong position in the group as well. But we should be beating them. Let's be honest, we've got better players than them. So over to them to show that tomorrow and get the result that we want.
Yeah, absolutely. Before I do come back to you, Keir, I just want to quickly say to everybody watching, if you wouldn't mind dropping us a wee like and subscribing if you're not already a subscriber. If you do enjoy what you hear on these shows, we have content pretty much every day. So it's definitely worth your while doing if you fancy it. And I mean, Keir, on what Stuart said there, we should realistically be beating a separate team. And of course, although there's no doubt whoever the new manager is going to come into a tricky situation, and it won't be necessarily the most upbeat for him, if you can create a couple of wee positives for him to come in with, like getting that 6 out of 6 in the Europa League, a win at the weekend as well, before we went into international break, it can just make things feel a little bit more positive if you're getting results on the pitch in the lead up to a new manager coming in, can't it?
It can. If you win tomorrow night, get some points, and we're sitting well in the group, and there's looking an attractive prospect. But I don't sit here and say we should be beating these teams, because we can't predict that for these players. It's like we should have been beating Kilmarnock, but we never. We should have been beating Aberdeen, but we never. Because if it's Cyprus or Cypriot mob, or you want to call them, Limassol, why should we be going over there and winning? We should be, as in all our minds, but will we? Because this is the Rangers team we don't know. They turn up when they want to, and they don't turn up other times. So I'm sitting here saying we should be beating St Mirren on Sunday, but will we? Because St Mirren 3 points ahead of us. This is what I mean with these players, and you look at the squad of players, and you just can't put your hat on any of them to say they'll do something. Do you know that way? And Tavernier comes out and says, we take responsibility, we will get better. But how many cliches has he said over the last few seasons? But I do think we will get a result. Bearing that in mind, I do think we will get a result, just because I don't think they're great, but I don't think we're great either. I think we're just two bad teams, and somebody's going to win it, and I do think it'll be us. But there's no any easy games in Europe anymore. I think the days are gone, and when there's more money in the football world than there's ever been, and we're not shopping anywhere near the top market. So the players we bring in, even though they're costing 3 million, 4 million, it doesn't mean they're going to be good players. It just means that's what we're paying for them. But it doesn't mean they're going to be good. Whereas years ago that are bringing in a really good player, but signing for somebody for 3.5 million doesn't mean he's going to be even an average player. Do you know what I mean? So it'll be, like I said, it's going to be an interesting few days ahead. I'm looking forward to seeing what Stephen Davis can do. I mean, you said it earlier, Connor Stewart, so you said it as well. Doesn't matter what Stephen does, he's got massive respect for all Rangers fans everywhere. So and none of this is going to be on him. So I just hope he can get a win in the time he's here. It reminds me a wee bit when Ian Durant took over. We were all happy when Ian Durant got the game in the cup, and like, what happened then? Do you know?
I was actually starting to feel a bit positive, Kerr, and now you've just ruined it. Cheers for that. That's brilliant. Also, just say it quietly, but actually see a victory. Let's not dispute the fact that financially, given the fact that we keep just shipping money out there by having to pay people off, getting some victories in this tournament, it could be useful to us to just bolster the accounts ever so slightly for any new manager that comes in.
Oh, it's absolutely aye. Because we can all talk about, well, can this, that, the next thing be done in January or even longer term in the summer? But as you say, from a financial point of view, the more money you can get in the door, particularly that European money that you get for each one and getting through, that's all going to factor into the budget ultimately that the new manager does get. I want to ask this question though. Whatever new manager comes in, Steve Davis today said that when he was asked about obviously his own, managerial ambitions and stuff, and about, obviously the job, because he is one of the named candidates at the very least. Although I'm not sure any of us would necessarily say we want him on a permanent basis, but is he somebody that would be a valuable asset to keep as part of your coaching staff? I mean, we know the chances are he'll probably retire as a player by the time this season's finished. Whether he actually makes another appearance, he has said that his rehab's been going quite well recently, so that's good news. We could always do with having him back for a game or two, but would you keep him on as part of your coaching staff, Stuart, if you were there?
Look, I can see the logic of that. A guy that knows the club inside out, that knows the dressing room, has great respect from players. So yeah, I can understand the logic. It depends on the individual, doesn't it? The manager that comes in. Some managers will absolutely want to bring their own folk in with them because they've worked for them for years, they trust them, whatever else. But you have seen circumstances where managers do like to keep someone who's been there as a bit of a sounding board, and to ask questions about how does this work or whatever. So he's in an ideal position now, Stephen Davis, for potentially that to happen because of this opportunity he's got. So would it surprise me? Not in the slightest, but in the same way, if a new guy comes in and wants his own people, I wouldn't be totally surprised at that. I would always quite like to have a Stephen Davis around about my club if I had that opportunity for that to happen. So if that was possible, I don't think I wouldn't have any issues with that if he joined someone's backroom team. But it's down to the individual, isn't it?
No, absolutely, I totally agree. And I mean, Kerr, obviously, I understand what the commenter was saying there about let's see how he does. That's fair. It's a fair comment. But for you personally, would you go along with Stuart? Would you have any issues with that if that was to be done with the new manager deciding to keep him alongside?
That's up to new manager when he comes in. I just think for Stephen to get it is far too early. Far too early in his manager. I know we can look back and say, well, Steven Gerrard got it, and he did, but I just think Stephen Davis, I'd rather he come back and have a crack at it when he's more experienced and he knows more the managerial side of it, he knows more ins and outs, and he knows pally with some of the players in the dressing room. But no, listen, I wouldn't mind Stephen being on the backroom staff somewhere, because I do think players look up to him. I do think young players especially look up to him, and I do think if he was coaching your training, especially a young guy, it'd be so good to learn off of, because he's done really everything in his career, Stephen, do you know that way? And he's highest cap player from Northern Ireland, tells you everything. You see all their players talk about him, and I mean, I don't think he'll get a job. I think it's going to go to be honest with you, I think it'll go to Kevin Muscat. I think that's my opinion. I'm not saying it's a thing, but I think that's my opinion. I was listening to Michael Bridges talking about, now I was listening to Craig Moore first of all, and I know Craig's his big mate, so I don't take a lot what to say because it's like trying to push your mate in. But I was listening to Michael Bridges and I was doing a bit today because I wasn't working today and about Muscat, and I learned a lot more about him than I knew, and I wouldn't think that would be a bad decision. I'm not saying it would be the best decision either, because like I say, I'm only learning more about him, but he seems to have an idea how to play. He seems to, the players all like him. He's got a lot of respect in Australia and Japan, and Michael Bridges talking about him and how the players react to him and how the team he's with in Japan, they get the 6th smallest budget compared to other sides. And they're probably won't win the league this year because they're 4 points behind, but he's getting the best out of these guys, and I just don't know. I just something that he was saying, it's like maybe that could be for us. I'd rather go him in than somebody like Lampard. I'm sorry, I don't think Lampard's a good manager. I think Frank Lampard lives in his name, nothing else. If it isn't called Lampard, I don't think he would be in the managerial positions, and I'd rather go down that route and get somebody like that. But just before I go, I'd like to say, whoever mentioned Billy Davis, I know it was only the clip, but they need a good slap. Billy Davis, come on.
Oh, yeah, well, listen, I mean, some of the names that have been banded about on social media, I've seen some even in our chat as well. It's, I guess these are always the names that come out of the woodwork when a vacancy comes up and these managers are out of a job. Naturally, they're going to be spoken about. But touching on the managerial position, well, actually, I'll answer Stephen's question actually first, since he's took the time to comment whether Stephen Davis will play for us again. I don't know, is the honest answer, Stephen. I think it depends how quickly he can get back to fitness as a player, and also depends if the new manager comes in and sees him as part of his plans. Because although, and I don't know, Stuart, if you would agree with me here, although we all love and respect what Stephen Davis has done, I think we also understand that you've got to constantly be looking towards the future. And if a new manager comes in, they'll be going, who's in my plans going forward? And I don't think Davis will be. So I don't know what your thoughts are, Stuart. Do you think he will don a Rangers jersey again?
I suppose you can never say never, but I got the sense from, he was asked about his injury and his recovery at the press conference, and I don't think it's been straightforward. His recovery, it's clear it's a bad injury, and let's be honest, he's not getting any younger. He's obviously looked after himself incredibly well throughout his career, but I do tend to agree. I mean, if Stephen Davis is around and about Rangers, I think that's more likely to be part of a backroom team coaching rather than he's still around Rangers because he's going to be an integral part of the centre of the park for us. I just don't. I don't see that, and I think we need to take into consideration that the seriousness of the injury they had, and his comment today that it's not been a straightforward recovery, and he's only now just starting to feel like his knees getting back to what it could be. So never say never, but I'd be surprised.
Yeah, no, totally agree. Well, moving on from that, let's have a bit of a chat then about that managerial position and who we think might take it. So, Kurt, firstly, what we'll do, I'm going to list you the 10 main names that are on the bookies list. And so we've got, I think Frank Lampard is the current bookies favourite at about 11-8. You've got Pascal Janssen, Kevin Muscat, Davis, obviously who we spoke about, Derek McInnes, please God no, Philippe Clement, Graham Potter, who cards on the table would be my preferred option, Marcelo Gallardo, Ryan Lowe, and John Eustace. So, Kurt, on that list, who stands out to you as the man that you'd pick as next Rangers manager if you were John Bennett?
If I was going to pick anybody, it'd be Gallardo, but they're not going to get him because he's out with a price range. And if you're giving somebody, by all accounts, he asked for £6.5 million at Leeds, he was going to get it and decided no. So if he's knocking back Leeds at £6.5 million a year, we're not going to pay that for something like that. So there again, when you're buying players, you're having to shop in a price range it's affordable to yourself. And if you give the manager that, then he's expecting a budget to go along with that. So where's the money coming from? So I think it's going to be likely. Listen, I don't want Lampard. I think Lampard's been a failure at Chelsea and Everton. I think he done okay at Derby, but he's no the manager for me. I'm sorry. Clement, would be a good choice, but I don't know if we could get him. The boy Janssen said we weren't in for him, by all accounts today. He said that was a rumour he didn't know anything about. He'd not been in touch with his head or him. So I don't know where that came from. I mean, Potter's already not ruled himself out, has he not, Connor? I mean, and he's another one who was getting like £10 million for Chelsea. Listen, they said they get £10 million payoff, so he's not going to need the money. But would Potter come up to Glasgow? Probably not. I mean, we all think we're a big club. We know we're a big club, but not in the sense of somebody who was at Chelsea. He's looking for another job in England or somewhere else. You don't want to come up to Scotland to thing me. I know people turn around and say, well, Rodgers went to Celtic. Different factors. Rodgers was that came down his family time. He went there when nobody wanted him. He done well. He got another job in England. He come back up because he was getting a sack for Leicester, and he thought, I'll go back there and press and I'll be off again if anybody comes back for me. It's not a living with Celtic. It's just he uses aim to get managers work because he's Irish and they fall for it. I just think when it comes to money, I think the names like realistically are going to be probably Lampard, Derek McInnes. I know Derek, and that, like I said before, personally, I'm going to bomb if he got it. Football wise, it might, because I know how Kilmarnock played, but he done okay with Aberdeen. He failed at Bristol City right enough. He done okay with St Johnstone. So I don't know. I think there'll be other names in the list before a manager's announced, to be honest with you. I think tomorrow or next day there could be other names there. Ryan Lowe. No, John Eustace, I quite like at Birmingham City, but I don't think he'll come up here, and two, I don't think we'll go for him anyway. But I quite like what John's doing down there. I don't know. Yeah. I think it'll end up being a manager that we're probably not even on that list. Do you know what I mean? It just depends who James Bridgegrove is in talks with and who he can get. And like I said, and Stuart said on the chat earlier, all comes down to finance. It does. That's what it comes down to, because managers will ask because what they think they're worth, not because they're skint. It's what they think they're worth as a manager. And that's what it'll come down to.
Yeah, I mean, Stuart, I must admit, as I said before, and I do agree with Kerr's points about Graham Potter, although he would be my, I think, ideal pick. I do think it's unlikely that he will come up. What's firstly, who would your pick be, and secondly, what's your thoughts on the idea that Frank Lampard is the current favourite? Because I have some serious reservations over that, because it feels like a sort of Steven Gerrard 2.0 type of signing, and the difference is Steven Gerrard get 2 years really to settle in, which the next manager is not going to get that time, is he?
No, absolutely not. I think the first thing I'd say about the manager, I have some sympathy, I think, for the board, and before people shoot me down on that, some sympathy, because I think when you look at the list of people being linked with the job, I've yet to meet any Rangers fan who gets excited by it. There isn't a standout candidate in this role, unless we don't know about them yet. And as Kerr says, if you point at Lampard, then you're going to have a section of the support who will be absolutely against that. If you, a Clement or a Janssen, it would be absolutely the same. So not only whoever they appoint, I think the board are going to have an initial bit where they have to try and convince a section of the support, and then that manager has got to start winning games pretty quickly, because they're going to have to convince those that are doubtful, because I don't see a standout candidate at this stage. I think for Rangers, I've used this in our chat in terms of, I think as fans, it took some fans longer to realise that football has changed, and that Rangers are no longer going to be able to go out and pick up the best players in the world, or spend 12 million here or whatever. It took fans longer. It's not that we're not a big club anymore or we're not attractive. It's the fact that we play in a very, really small league in a small country, right, co-located to the biggest league in the world, and that goes against us. We're now in the same situation with managers. Gallardo's a perfect example. He would be, to me, the standout candidate to get this Rangers job, in terms of it would be exciting, it would be fresh, he plays a brand of football that I think would get people excited to go and watch games. But he's asking for £6.5 million a year. We're not even paying half of that. So if we don't appoint him, it's not because Rangers aren't interested in him or haven't thought about him. They may well have actually tried to sound him out about it. It's probably that he's just not within our reach anymore. And that's not because Rangers aren't a big club or we lack ambition. We should always try to get the best. I just think we need a bit more, just a kind of a broader look in terms of where we are in the footballing world now. And that's unfortunate for that. Clement would be the standout for me in terms of on that list. Now, whether or not he's even on the list, I don't know. But I say that because he's won stuff. I actually think he looks as if he plays a decent brand of football as well. He's done relatively well. So he's done well domestically, and he's had some success in Europe in what was tough groups within the Champions League. So there's something there about him. Muscat, I'm very, very 50-50 on, but the one thing I would say in his benefit is I think he would play a brand of football that would probably win us games domestically. Whether or not that would then translate to Europe, I think, again, we're going to have a wee bit of what's more important. So it's going to be a tough job because I don't believe there's a standout candidate on this list. And I think, as Kerr says, whoever we pick, there's probably going to be a section of the support who are not against it, but are wary of that appointment. And then you're already they've got to hit the ground running. And that's why maybe if we can try and get someone who's had a winning mentality, who's tasted that success, and who has a style, I think that is massively important. See if we can see a manager trying to bring in and adopt a style to the team. I think he'll get fans on board. We didn't see that. If the results under Michael Beale weren't going our way, but we could at least look on the pitch and say, I can see what he's trying to do. It's just not quite coming off. I think the fans would have given him more time and more respect. We weren't seeing that. So a manager that can bring a style in, and hopefully who's got a kind of winning mentality is what you're after. But it's not an easy job for the board. I do have some sympathy for them.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, the debate will, of course, rage on, and time will tell who the new manager will be. I think Paul makes a good point there. We said it earlier, no matter who it is, not everybody's going to be happy with it, but I think we'll all get behind that manager because we need whoever that manager is to be a success. There is no more, wiggle room for false starts and for things to fall by the wayside again, because you can't have these conversations on an annual basis. But we shall leave it there for tonight. I've enjoyed that tonight, lads, so I've just got to thank Stuart and Kerr. Thanks very much. And thanks everybody. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll be back tomorrow night for all the match day coverage with a pre-match build-up, and then we'll have the reaction when the match is done. See you all then.